This itself, I think, is a major victory for people's movements all over the world. And we should continue doing this, building our strength, exchanging ideas, and taking each other's rich experiences into the movement and taking it forward. The more we meet each other, exchange ideas, movements will gather force, and we will see that most of the issues which are facing workers all over the world are common. So there is a very old slogan which has been thrown around a lot, that workers of the world should unite. And I think when global capital is uniting in such a large way and using every possible means to unite and use the apps, algorithms and digital economy to exploit workers, it is our turn now to use the same digital economy to organize. And if we don't organize within this framework, and the face of employers is lost somewhere in the net, and billionaires are created every day. People have startups and people have unicorns, and we never hear of the thousands and hundreds of workers who are slogging day in and day out, delivering pizzas, driving taxis, and these apps which are being used to build large profit bases are being siphoned off into parts of the world which workers don't even know. Looking at labor cases in India, the entire fight of labor laws for gig workers has been to recognize them as workers against independent contractors. The entire app-based industry has been trying its best to show gig workers, app-based workers as independent contractors, as partners. And this is the major legal hurdle which we face. And the law on contractors or employees is very old. In the Indian courts, this has gone to the Supreme Court when salt workers working on salt pans decades ago fought for their rights, and the owner said that they are not workers but they are independent contractors who make salt out of ocean water and sell the salt. We give it to them to sell it door to door on their heads, and they go around selling. So they are not our workers, but they are independent traders. They make their own salt. It's just our land. They make their own salt, they put it on their head and walk hundreds of miles every month selling the salt door to door. So this has been a long march for working class rights, and today we have come to the fact that the IFAT, Indian Federation of App-Based Workers, has gone to the Supreme Court trying to build a case for Uber and Ola drivers, saying that these aggregator agreements are against the Constitution of India because they are forced labor. These agreements don't fulfill the necessity of labor laws. They don't give minimum wage, they don't give bonuses, they don't give social security. And this agreement with the drivers itself is exploitative and trying to show the law, make the labor law into a farcical kind of legislation where owners and app owners are able to subvert the law. So this has gone to the Supreme Court. It's not yet decided, but this will be the big battle in the coming years, where Amazon workers will have to fight along with other workers, because the fight of app-based workers cannot be put into a bubble. This is the kind of traditional mistake we have done, where we have taken any one section and a sectional demand which is not connected to the broader mass of trade unions. And unless we build solidarity with all the other working people in the country, Nepal or India or anywhere in the world, the demands of app-based workers cannot be won. So this battle on the streets will have to be shoulder to shoulder with our sisters and brothers in other unions. And we have to get an identity of the working class. We cannot be jumping from job to job and trying to show ourselves that we don't care for all this, because that is the challenge also for trade unions, to try and organize gig workers, because they are not serious enough to consider themselves to be the working class and demand for their rights within the company. So the law itself will have to be fine-tuned, and I wouldn't say that all the battles need to be fought in the courts, because the courts, you know, the law is an ass, and they look at words and they start fooling around, and you have highly paid lawyers making a mockery of justice. So unless and until we have power on the streets, voting powers, and if you look at some of the figures today, we are talking of large numbers. We are talking of numbers which will baffle us, that what is the size of the gig workers? We are talking of 23.5 million workers in India itself. 23.5 million workers in India. Now when we talk of such large numbers, we are a force, and we are a force which has power over politicians, power to vote, because these are voters, these are consumers, these are taxpayers. So we have to convert our unity, convert our numbers into a political force, and we will have to bargain with the powers, speak truth to power, and make them pass legislation. And if we look at the victories which the gig workers have had in Rajasthan or in Telangana, it comes from people moving the government and politicians and political parties thinking that if they come out with some legislation for gig workers, they are going to reach their constituencies, more votes for them. We have to make our votes count. We have to make our money which we spend also count to the government. We are not freeloading on the economy. Every gig worker is also paying his taxes, because his taxes are deducted. And that's why we have to convert ourselves not only to displaced, segregated, broken up group, but we have to become the voice of the majority, build this into power, build it into the courts, and make legislators, corporators, and all sorts of people's representatives understand the nature of our work, because we find there is a lot of ignorance. People really don't know whether the Uber driver owns the taxi or he is getting a percentage, whether the boy or girl who comes and delivers your pizza, does she make any money? Does the tip goes to her? And if we look at Indian society, which is very aspirational, it is a growing economy which is completely moving to the digital economy. Even the middle income groups are now ordering their pizzas, everything is on the digital Amazon, and even the smallest of products are being ordered through Amazon. When that is the case, we need to also make our consumers of Amazon understand that the product which they're getting into their houses are cheap products, because they're being exploiting us, they're exploiting the workers, and because you have direct access to the consumer in his house or in their house, it is also a great place to organize, get into conversations with the consumers, and we can reach. Our people are also mobile. People are on bikes, people are on cars, so it's a great place to mobilize. And finally, the gender issue is very important here, because the exploitation in the Amazon warehouses or all Flipkart, these companies are having massive godowns, warehouses where contractors are employed to get labor in, and the employer-employee relationship is camouflaged. So there are multiple layers till you reach the employer, and when you actually drag them to court, you may find out you were never an Amazon employee or a Flipkart employee. You are an employee of some contractor who is based somewhere else and who only has a door number or an address. So this is very important to get the government and the Labour Commissioner to recognize us and document us. So one of the demands of the case of IFAT in Supreme Court is to have a government portal. Have a government portal which registers every gig worker. Every gig worker in the country, be whichever company. If you are hiring or contracting a gig worker, that person's name should be on a government portal, because the government cannot claim to have ignorance. What happened during COVID should not happen to the gig worker, because millions of people were marching home, unable to stay in the global cities of Bombay, Hyderabad, Delhi, and the government claimed they didn't even know who these people are and where are they walking, where are they going. They claimed ignorance, and that is why the gig worker has to be documented, the gig workers, app-based workers, and if the government is not doing that, we should do it ourselves. We should build our own portals, our own clouds, where this documentation is done. Use the Shram card, use different forms. The Shram card is a card bought out by the Modi government to document all the informal workers, home-based workers, every kind of worker. In that, our gig workers also should register and get their name somewhere in the government registry. This will give us multiple ways of getting registered and getting heard. And finally, friends, I again congratulate all of you. यहाँ पर आकर आपने ये बातें सुनी और लोगों से मुलाकात की. मुझे लगता है नेपाल की जनता, इंडिया की जनता और पूरे विश्व की जनता, ये जो गिग वर्कर्स की लड़ाई है, इसे हम और बढ़ा सकते हैं, और इसे बढ़ाने में एक नया, एक यंग लोगों का लड़ाई है, बहुत यंग और डायनामिक लोगों की लड़ाई है, और इस लड़ाई को हमको आगे जाना है. शुक्रिया.